Hello out there. My name is Laolu Akonde, and you are on to Inside Sources. Happy Democracy Day, and here is my take entitled, What Does These Things Mean for Democracy? Let's start with a bit of cheering news. Abia State is now said to be enjoying 24-hour power supply. That is a democracy dividend, and you're going to give it to that governor in the state, Governor Oti. Something that proves that democracy means delivery of social goods to the people. And there are quite a few other things, such as the disclosure by the federal government that now there are about 1 million university students in this country who have had their tuitions paid for under the NEV Fund scheme. The FG has also managed to keep the universities open, although there are still work-to-rule actions here and there. But at least it's something to cheer. But let's look at some few other major issues and some dramas in our country. And then we will ask ourselves, what does that mean for democracy? We start with insecurity. Last Friday during my take, I asked people to speak out so that we, all, government and people, can get our acts together to fight the evil doers in our country, those who are perpetrating killings. I said in that take that silence in the face of horror of those terrorists cutting people's head off like Ileya rams and abducting school children and toddlers for ransom could amount to moral complicity. And in fact now, the fear in the country is becoming quite rampant. Some major schools, such as Government College in Ibadan, and some private schools, they are shutting down. Where schools are not shutting down, some eminent Nigerians are removing their children from school and their wards from top-notch private and international schools across this country. It's about the fear that is in the land. But we must also say a word of support to our security agencies and forces, especially those who are giving the terrorists a fight for their life. For instance, the Oyo State Police Command and the Ministry of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy put out a most encouraging news update packaged in an artwork showing progress in the Oyo abduction investigation. Encouraging. In it, we are told about the 6 informants and couriers that the terrorists worked with in that abduction in Ori local government in Oyo State. Now, by a number of sources, we are informed that the bandits themselves are still in the forest and the possibilities of a rescue is not ruled out in that case. Now, again, that is very hopeful because we must defeat those terrorists and we must restore sanity, tranquility, and order in our communities in Nigeria. We are also being assured that progress is being made on the legal and constitutional changes that will ultimately produce state police. Now, all we have to say now is, let us keep at it diligently. We can't afford to drop the ball anymore. Nigeria will prevail. Now, like I said, what does that mean for democracy? It means the voice of the people and the voice of reason must prevail. My next topic is, this is looking like a joke. Leave Jonathan alone. I have discussed with some of the key insiders working on former President Goodluck Jonathan running under the auspices of the PDP in the next year's presidential post. Now, they say that the plan is serious and that they mean it. Now, there's no point disputing that. They say the man, that is Mr. President Jonathan, will eventually come out and openly own that effort publicly to run. But for now, based on what we see publicly, this idea of Jonathan running for presidency by proxy is not looking right. It's actually looking like a joke. The man, Jonathan himself, didn't even come out to collect the party's certificate of return after the party had waived all rules of clearance and co for him during its primary period. It's certainly looking like what we used to know as Baba Salah and Awada Keri Keri in the Southwest. Some very hilarious comedy that helps people to recreate in the evenings, especially in the 70s and the 80s after he had this walk. That's what it's looking like. I think the folks that are pushing this national joke should understand that Jonathan has risen far above what the PDP platform today has become. And they need the former president, they need him to help them redeem the party. So let's advise Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, keep your first name. This PDP is comatose, if not dead. If you had shown interest much earlier, it certainly would have been much more plausible to have a significant showing. That time seems to have passed. And this is why I said this thing is looking like a joke and those people should just leave Jonathan alone. So what does that mean to democracy? Well, it means that Jonathan has a right to run, but it can't be done by proxy in a democratic country. The next thing I want to talk about is titled, Don't This Man Have Shame? There's a video of the APC National Secretary saying that in their own party, they don't pick candidates by primaries. That claims by some people that they participated in primaries are jokes. In that yet-to-be-disputed video, Senator Ajibola Bashiru said that in their party, that is APC, it is the leaders who pick candidates. The man is a lawyer, and God help you if you forget to introduce him without his PhD in law being acknowledged. Even on TV, he will correct you. But here is somebody that has a PhD in law saying that what is written in the APC constitution and the relevant laws of the land is not the way their own party picks candidates. And he was saying this publicly. Should we not be ashamed on his behalf? Himself being a lettered man, a learned man. At times in our country, the political elites treat us to a drama that is stranger than fiction. So what does it mean for a democracy? This simply doesn't even look like a democracy at all. This type of behavior that is shown by the National Secretary of APC cannot continue in a democracy. My next topic says, from frying pan to fire. Senator Dixon, what's going on there? And that's in the voice of Macaroni. No one is really heartbroken that APC leaders do mago-mago with their primaries. Like I just said above, some of their leaders, including ADC, they don't take themselves too seriously. But I'm sure people expected something different and better from the National Democratic Congress. Yet, didn't you see how they treated, that's NDC, how they treated some of their members like the indomitable Aisha Yesufu and the good man from Edo State, E.J. Agbonayima, among others. Didn't you see how they treated them? Aisha showed a bit of class in her reaction by sticking with the party, apparently looking at the bigger picture in spite of what they did to her. And EJ, on his part, told the story of how he was invited by Senator Seriake Dixon, the leader of the party, to run for Senate, only to be knocked out without an opportunity to even try anything in the election. It was EJ that said, leaving APC to NDC is like jumping from frying pan right into the fire properly. So we must ask Brother Seriake, what's happening there? We see you as an upstanding man of decent pedigree. I beg, Senator Dixon, what has changed? So what does that mean for democracy? Transparency and accountability is an imperative for democracy. There is no democracy without it. And let me now end, finally, with an insecurity issue, just like we started. And this is titled, First Lady, Please Balance the Equation. So now that our First Lady has shared free cars to some women leaders of the APC ahead of 2027, which is what our politicians will normally do, let us respectfully request of her to make a big show of empathy also for the woman whose husband was beheaded in Oyo State recently for no just cause, and to all the women and the children who were victims of extreme violence across this country. Specifically at this material time, we are asking the First Lady to also show them some empathy. Your Excellency, please don't say you do stuff like that behind the scene, because your empathy behind the scene would not satisfy the yearnings of some of the children, women, and people across this country who sincerely look up to you, including Moa. The recent giveaway cast was done openly and publicly. So please, Madam First Lady, balance the equation now. Show Nigerians the empathy where and when it is badly needed. The mood of the nation demands it. There is grief, there is apprehension. Those emotions weigh more with the people than the plans to win the 2027 elections. So, Diama, you have to balance the equation. I recall that you had once in the past, specifically 2024, called for capital punishment for kidnappers. And you said your heart bleeds when they take women and children. So you also felt the rage then. So show the sympathy and the empathy now as well. Whether people like it or not, you are today in the position of the mother of the nation. Show us that indeed, now our mama be this, so we no get another one. Now our mama be this, so eh. So what does that mean for democracy? Your guesses are as good as mine. And there you have it. Inside Sources goes full blast right after this. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today is Democracy Day, and I want to have a conversation to look at the advances and the challenges that remain around the very idea of us having a democratic society in our country. To join me in that important conversation is somebody who is a pioneering human rights advocate in this country, who actually before the June 12, 1993 election has been very active around some of these issues, and is currently the executive director of Policy and Legal Advocacy Center that has been doing a lot of work, especially with the National Assembly. I'd like to welcome back to Inside Sources, Mr. Clement Nwanko. My brother, happy Democracy Day.
Yeah, thanks, Laulu. Happy Democracy Day to you and to our viewers and Nigerians. I think it's well said. We should be happy that we have civilian government in Nigeria.
Exactly. And, you know, it's very important to make that careful distinction that, okay, you know, at least we have civil rule for now. So let's take it off by saying that what's your own assessment since that time, you know, 1993, when we had that big annulment leading to the Fourth Republic up until now? What are the critical developments or progresses and the challenges that you think remain, you know, in our quest to have a truly democratic society?
I think we've had significant improvements. It's been a mixed bag as well. Citizens have become much more aware. June 12, 1993 was still an issue. People had not, a lot of people were not familiar with civilian rule. In 1993, I had never really experienced civilian rule. So
well, you must have done so in 1793.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I did see that. But what I mean is that a whole lot of people
but at least 30 years
didn't see it. And for a lot of us who did see the beginning of democracy and the end of it, and then see the military intervene, it was a major challenge knowing how to live in that era. And that's why the movement to create the human rights movement, the democracy movement started. And if you recollect, I had created the Civil Liberties Organization, CLO, joined by my friend Ulisa Agbakoba. We jointly created the Civil Liberties Organization, and that became the major rallying point for challenge to democracy, to military dictatorship. You did, of course, see more groups come on after the CLO was set up. And, of course, you did see the group NADECO, which was a major movement at the time that brought in both civil society and the politicians.
And you were honored recently among the heroes of Nadeko at the Lagos event a couple of weeks back.
Yes, Nadeko did have that event where some of us received recognition for the work that we had done, and we do appreciate Nadeko doing the work that he did. But the point, I think, is really that we have seen some improvements. Citizens are very much more aware now what democracy means. In the period between 1979 and 1983, there were criticisms of the civilian government, especially after the first election under civilian rule was conducted in 1983, where we saw the elections badly run, badly managed, and incredible results produced from that election.
Landslide.
And people, of course, a lot of people were angry about that election, where you had landslide, like you said, moonslide, and the rest of it, and all of the crises that generated, especially in the southwest of the country. Ondo, Oyo, Bendel State, now been Edo and Delta, and Anambra, and some of those states at the time. So the anger wasn't organic, so to say. It was there, but it wasn't widespread beyond those who were politically conscious. Today, a whole lot of Nigerians are very, very politically conscious. The means of communication have expanded incredibly. Social media has brought to attention of everyone where we are in terms of our democracy. And so people are much more inquisitive, asking more questions about where our democracy is headed. And I can tell you that I think a lot of people are deeply worried about where this democracy is headed. And I think that that's part of the progress we have seen, that more people are conscious, and so they are asking questions. They're asking questions of the executive about the failure of the executive to do what it should do, about the levels of corruption in the executive, about the mismanagement of resources in the executive, about the legislature and how the legislature is not meeting up to people's expectations on the nature and level and extent of oversight that the legislature should handle, about the courts and how the courts are now being questioned about some of the decisions that they give, and how it is that people feel that those who commit impunity say with impunity go to court. And they are thinking that, yes, it doesn't matter if you go to court anyway, the courts won't give you justice. So I think those are issues that people are much more aware of now, and is raising concerns.
Okay, very, very good opening statement that covers the whole 9 yards. So let's take it one by one and see how far we can go. Let's start with the idea of legislative reforms, around the elections, which is, a major issue. I remember all the way back to when President Yaradua was president, he set up this idea of having the Ways Commission that did quite a lot of work in the area of electoral reforms. Between then and now, we've had quite a few other alterations to it. And we have come to a point now, Clement, where the Electoral Act says that parties are only limited to 2 options, for their primaries. It's either they come with a consensus candidate or they do direct primaries. But what we have seen, in this season of primaries is a lot of irregularities. Clearly, there are some few instances where things worked out very well, like in Lagos, gubernatorial, and few other instances, people think that, okay, this is decent. But by and large, beyond that, for the most part, whether it's APC or ADC or NDC, you see politicians really behaving even below the expectations of previous electoral cycles. As we are talking today, Clement, most people don't even know who are the candidates, for especially National Assembly. There is a controversy, even in the National Assembly, about who won, who did not, How do you respond to this? What's your take around all of this?
I think the political parties, the legislature, INEC even, are complicit in the quagmire that we are in at this time. And I did remember the work that we did supporting National Assembly on a new electoral law. And I think that part of the recommendations from that committee was to have multiplicity of means of primaries, whether it is consensus or indirect primaries or primaries. A lot of legislators felt that indirect primaries was expensive.
Okay.
And, well, not a lot, because at the technical stage, everybody agreed on these three options.
Right.
But at a different level altogether, you now began to see some of those recommendations that the committee put forward being tinkered with. The body of legislators didn't challenge that, which is, for me, worrying. It shouldn't be that the leadership of a legislature determines how the legislature votes. Every legislator is there in their own rights.
Yeah, they are independent representative of the people.
Representing their constituencies. It shouldn't be that a presiding officer, for instance, who is just first among equals or second among equals,
we come and tell everybody,
begins to tinker, and the leadership of a particular house tinker and come up and ram down the throat of legislators what should be passed, which is something more work that needs to be done to get the legislature to become independent. It's not just independence from the executive, but independence from their own leadership, such that they can have reasoned conversations among themselves and come up with what makes sense to do. We have now seen that the removal of indirect primaries and allowing for direct only or consensus has given a lot of options to party leadership and executive leadership in the state to determine who the candidate is. So if a governor in the state decides that he doesn't like a particular legislator,
right,
not because he has not been excellent in legislative duties, but because of some other considerations,
right,
then that legislator doesn't get in, because the governor controls the party list, who shows up for primaries as a party member, and then people can be beaten into line to accept a consensus that is perhaps just the governor's own wish.
Yeah.
So these are things that are wrong with the Electoral Act. And then suddenly we have also seen that parties themselves got into crisis. Some have alleged that that crisis is instigated by the central government. And it may not be far from the truth that that is the case. So virtually every political party is in a crisis.
Yeah.
Apart perhaps from the ruling party, which has its own internal problems, but it's not exposed to extraneous interferences. So the instability in parties has meant that the primaries has not gone quite well. And then INEC comes and compounds the problem by creating its own timelines that is in violation of the Electoral Act. Because the Electoral Act gives a particular time during which parties must have their primaries.
Okay.
And INEC comes in and circumscribes this and shortens it. And then someone goes to court, but that court case came after the primaries. Most of the primaries have been conducted. And then the court says INEC's timelines are illegal, and I agree with that decision.
Interesting.
But then another court comes. Someone else goes to another court of concurrent jurisdiction, obtains a contrary decision to say that INEC should proceed with those timelines. Now, that's the challenge with the judiciary that we're having today. And I bring a perfect example. We had President Donald Trump go to the US, go to the John F. Kennedy Center, and procured a renaming of the center in his name.
Yeah.
And began to call it Donald Trump Kennedy Center. Changed the management of the center.
Became the chair.
And became, you know. And someone went to court. And the court ruled that Trump's actions were illegal because the center was named by Congress. And so
the executive
Trump cannot rename it by executive order. What did Trump do? He obeyed it. Today, his name has been removed from the building. Trump did not go to another court in Florida, his home state,
to go and get
a counter order and say his name was to remain there. So where you have a situation that courts are being allowed to entertain matters that have been adjudicated on by courts of concurrent jurisdiction, then there is no further evidence of the collapse of the judicial system and rule of law than this. And that this is allowed to happen tells you where we are headed. And it's not just with respect to
this
particular issue of timelines. It's also often with who is the leader of a party. You have counter orders. How can the judiciary allow this to be going on? How can the leadership of the judiciary allow this to be going on? How can the National Assembly actually allow this to be going on? There should be enforcement of criminal proceedings against this type of conduct.
Interesting. But, you know...
you do have, I'm sorry, but you do have a situation where the entire system is broken down. And it's a question for all of us. One, the political parties themselves in the confusion that they are in, the executive overreaching itself to create crisis within political parties, the National Assembly itself not able to show its independence of thought in terms of laws that it passes, and the Electoral Commission just basically giving to everyone the worry that it is not acting in a way that is non-partisan.
Yeah, interesting. So in your own view, or what they argued, why was INEC interested in shortening the time, you know, circumscribing the outlines of the timing of the electoral process? You know,
it's unclear to me, and you know, the Constitution is very clear. Elections cannot hold earlier than 150 days. 150 days from May 29th means that elections cannot hold earlier. You count back 150 days. 150 days is 5 months. So if you count back from May, then you're looking at elections holding perhaps in January, December 29th, no earlier than that. And then it says no later than 30 days, which means that elections can still hold until April 28th.
Right.
It makes no sense to me that you, virtually half of the membership of the Electoral Commission are going to vacate office before the next elections. Then you have a new chairman. Why are you rushing yourself into an election that people are beginning to question whether you're ready for? So it would seem to me that if INEC is not going to be ready for elections, is it possible that INEC is being pressured to conduct elections earlier simply because parties are in crisis and they would not have recovered from the crisis before the early election date that you have chosen?
Interesting.
And why would INEC allow itself to be put in that position? We did have an election in 2023 that raised a lot of concerns about credibility of the electoral process. You would expect a new INEC chairman INEC to be very conscious of the fact that public credibility is at its lowest. As some people have even said, it's as low as it was in 2007 when the late President Yar'Adua inaugurated the Electoral Reform Committee headed by Justice Uwais. So if you're coming from that low public confidence level, why don't you work in a way that rebuilds it? And then, you know, I am part of what we call the platform called the Civil Society Election Situation Room, the Civil Society Situation Room.
Yeah, you used to chair it, actually.
And I chaired it for more than 10 years. And as I speak to you now, I do not know of any election platform group, whether it is a Civil Society Situation Room or any other group, that has close understanding of what INEC is doing regarding the next elections.
Because everybody seems to be confused.
We have no information.
Is it that you are not engaging INEC or INEC is not engaging you as they used to do?
It is that we are ready to engage with INEC. Is INEC ready to engage with us?
You don't know.
We have to wait to see that. But you can't run an election where you are caged and insulated from engaging with stakeholders.
Now, in terms of that engagement, you know, is it that in previous electoral cycles, that engagement ought to have started by now. I'm trying to figure out the timing for the engagement.
When the civil society situation room was created in 2010, it was an immediate engagement with Professor Tahiru Jega's led INEC. And that engagement never ceased.
I see.
So whether it was during elections or post-elections or pre-elections, it was ongoing.
So as we speak now, you know, the folks like yourself in that community, you've not had any engagement with
we've had engagement, but the nature and level of engagement, especially as you approach elections, this is what, 7 months to elections?
Yeah.
We have no understanding what INEC is doing.
Yeah, well, but if you have engagement, why don't you raise the issues at those engagements that we don't understand what you guys are doing?
Well, I think those things have been communicated. INEC has what it calls its regular briefing of civil society, but that's not the agenda. That's for the media. That's for the public.
So you need something much more incisive and in-depth.
Something that is substantial and substantive, because
around the current issues.
Around the current issues, because for INEC to succeed, it must listen to citizens.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't do so, it would be a shame, because they take the credit or discredit for what happens. Especially
that, just like you said, we actually have a damaged, in my view, INEC just before Amukpito came in. And, you know, I see Amukpito, this is my view, I see he's been struggling to try to get a hold of it. And then there are all these kind of controversies all over the place. You know, look at how the Supreme Court had to set him straight on the issue of ADC and all of that. I wanted to ask you, do you think that the chairman, the new chairman, what's your view about the chairman of INEC, the new chairman? Do you think that he's compromised?
All I can say is that it's important to engage. And if the INEC chairman engages, then it is easy to form an opinion about him and the commission generally. For me, it's not a personal issue.
Yeah, well, it's leadership.
At this time, that engagement doesn't exist. And we can only raise concern that we do not know what INEC is doing as we speak. I mean, the relationship is friendly, but you have to get inputs from stakeholders, and you have to receive feedback on what you are doing from stakeholders. One of the very brilliant things that Professor Tahiru Jega did was to work with civil society in a forum that was called a technical advisory group, which was a select number of people who gave him feedback on what is going on with the commission and the public. I don't know if that exists right now, and I think that to some extent, Professor Mahmoud tried to do a bit of that, even if it was sometimes a tense relationship, to the point that he basically had to disband it because he got very tense when the group was quite emphatic on what needed to be done. And I was very much involved with that group, actually coordinating that group. And I'm not asking for any particular roles. I'm just simply saying that it is important that you listen to people who have experience and knowledge of these issues, who would be able to give you an honest feedback. Because for me, it's to say honestly and truthfully to you that this is wrong. This is right. I remember a time under when Professor Jega was chairman of INEC, and the executive at the time was trying to get the chairman and commissioners to be responsible to the secretary of the commission. And we said no. There's a constitutional amendment that says that INEC will appoint its own secretary. There's a constitutional amendment that says that INEC shall not be subject to the control and direction of any person whatsoever. Those constitutional provisions, those laws exist. And it is important that the commission understands that they are not subject to the control or directive or direction of any person or authority.
Except the Constitution.
Except that they respect the Constitution. And quite honestly, if you are in the commission, whether a commissioner or a chairman, and you feel that you are hampered in the work that you do, you don't have to remain there. You don't have to.
Interesting.
That's, of course, if you are concerned about your integrity.
Yeah, yeah. And the INEC chairman, new INEC chairman, is a senior advocate of Nigeria. So, you know, I mean, I will expect that he understands these issues clearly. But let's move along, because I wanted to also talk about, since we're talking about democracy, political parties themselves, they are institutions of democracy. You know, that's the old idea. And that's why internal democracy in the parties are critical. Now, there's a video that is going on. I hope you've seen it. The National Secretary of APC, you know, said in the video, a fallout of these primaries, that, oh, we're in our own parties, you know, you don't do primaries. It's not through primaries that candidates emerge, that it's the leadership. I wanted to ask you, you know, and with all that we have seen, what is your own assessment? What else can we do to compel political parties to behave democratically? You have a national secretary saying that, well, in our party, we just speak, the leaders speak. You know, I mean, and then, of course, you have the rulings of the judiciary that also says that, oh, well, internal parties, internal issues of the parties are up to the parties. But the parties are not behaving democratically. How can we have a democracy when the political parties are not behaving democratically, Mr. Clement?
Well, the process of selection or election of candidates for during primaries or for them to contest elections, it cannot be exclusively resident in the political party leadership. And again, I go back to the US, and it's a bit ironical that I'm going back to Trump, whose democratic credentials are up for debate at this time. But,
well, at least he's being curbed.
Yeah, but you have seen instances what has happened recently, and I think it was over the weekend, or last weekend, that a lot of the primaries in the US held.
Yeah.
Trump, when he supports a candidate, goes all out. He doesn't stop others from contesting.
Of course.
But he says, this is the candidate I'm supporting.
Yeah, but
and then he mobilizes his
whole
MAGA
base.
group, base, to go and support his own candidate, which is what we should do here. The law in this country does not say that parties can impose candidates. No, that doesn't exist in the electoral
and that is
act.
what is happening now.
The electoral act is quite clear. It prescribes, if the electoral act did not anticipate that primaries be contested, it would make no provisions for it. It would simply say parties should submit their list of candidates. But this is a first past the post-electoral system. What that means is that the candidates must be known, they must be chosen by the parties through democratic process. And that's why even the constitution amendments that are going on indicates how, and the electoral act as well, how to handle pre-election matters in courts. So it anticipates that there would be dispute that would be settled. So quite clearly, I think that if any party official says things that are contrary to the Electoral Act or the Constitution, it behoves on the party members to say, we don't accept what you are saying. And I think that people should feel able to challenge violations of the law, whether within political parties or indeed any other arm of government.
Interesting, very, very, very important. And, you know, because of our time, let's start to wrap up. So it's been 3 years now, you know, just as we are celebrating Democracy Day, it's also 3 years of the Tinubu administration. You know, I want you to, as somebody that, you know, pioneered human rights advocacy, you know, transparency and accountability in this country, in terms of those two important indices, transparency, accountability, which are critical to democracy, how do you rank the Tinubu administration? For instance, in their relationship with opposition parties, you know, in their relationship with the media, have we seen more transparency? Is the government showing us that it wants to be more accountable? What's your view? Final question.
I think that it's a whole lot of issues. For me, I think that any government that doesn't respect human rights has a serious problem. And I think there's been a whole lot of human rights issues regarding this administration that it needs to put itself in check on. A lot of people acting under cybercrime laws. The administration has had a whole lot of people arrested, and it's not just at the federal level. It's used by government officials against critics. Transparency issues, people are asking questions, for instance, about budgets. It seems that a budget is passed by the National Assembly, no one gets a sense of how it is implemented or if it is implemented at all. Projects are being carried out, and one of the biggest, most expensive projects that this country has ever introduced appears to be operating without a budget that anybody understands, and this is the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway.
No procurement process.
The humongous sum of money involved, the National Assembly has not shown to us that they approved such a budget. There is no accountability regarding it. All we have seen is a Minister of Works who very much loudly speaks about it without pointing to the grounding in terms of fiscal accountability for this. So these are major issues. There are human rights questions. There are questions about interference with democratic principles, political party independence, and how resources of state are used to induce crisis within political parties. All of these are issues that we should be very, very concerned about. And for a lot of us who suffered incredibly under military rule, a lot of people were killed under military dictatorship, the very horrible dictatorships of General Sani Abacha and General Ibrahim Babangida. A lot of people died, were killed. For a lot of us who went through that brutal phase of life in this country, we celebrate civilian rule, but we want it accompanied by real democracy. And whether we have real democracy today is up in the air, and that's what a whole lot of people are demanding, that our civilian rule must be accompanied by democracy. And if our democracy is destroyed by lack of proper voting, by a failed electoral system, by abuse of human rights, by lack of accountability by government, then it means that the struggle for the ideals of June 12 have not been realized yet.
Interesting. And it's quite significant to say that, because we have a president who was with you, during those struggles of which you speak, and...
I wouldn't say anything about where the president was, but I must say that a lot of us who were in this country, who were imprisoned, who were shot on the streets, and who were determined to remain in this country to see to the end of military rule, are not happy about where civilian rule is today and how much of this civilian rule has democracy infused into it. That's what I can say regarding where we are today.
And I agree with that, because during that event, as we close, that Nadeko event where people like you were honored, somebody asked one of the journalists that was went to jail, during that time, that is this the democracy that you guys, went to jail and suffered, for? Of course, the answer was that absolutely no. And he said that he's sure that some of the generals will be having a good laugh. Say, look at what happened to you guys. So.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think that a lot of people will ask the question whether this is what we thought we're going to have. And it's been a degeneration of some sorts, I must say, in terms of fulfillment of democratic ideals. When President Obasanjo took over power, you could see that you did have a legislature that could challenge President Obasanjo.
Pushed him back on third term, effectively.
Chuba Kadibo was Senate President. Kenan Namani was Senate President when they challenged the third term agenda and killed it. So it's a whole lot that is a question. When do you have a return of that type of legislative oversight that helps to push back against the tendency of the executive to be arbitrary?
Interesting. Well, we look forward to that day. We'll keep on speaking up and raising our voices. Thank you so much, Mr. Clement Nwankwo.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. I know that you do a lot of behind-the-scene work in the National Assembly, for which we are very grateful. And thank you for your voice. all the time, and thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you, Laulu. My privilege to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Once again, happy Independence Day, but we're going to be concluding with another segment where we are talking about insecurity. We have two guests, somebody from the U.S. who is working with the Americans on resolving the insecurity in Nigeria, somebody here in Nigeria, an expert. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today I want to have a conversation with two important Nigerians around what is happening in the country insecurity-wise. I have a new guest who is joining us for the first time, but who is clearly very engaged, even publicly, both in Nigeria and the United States, about the challenges of insecurity in our country. He hails from Yelewata in Benue State, and he is one of the Nigerians abroad who have worked very closely with top U.S. government officials to ensure that we get the kind of engagement that we have seen from the Americans. And I'd like to welcome for the first time to Inside Sources, Mr. Frank Uto, a U.S.-based lawyer, and I call him an advocate for country outside the country. Right. Frank, welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you so much, Laulu. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And here in the studio with me is our returning guest, is the Director General of the International Institute for Security and Governance Study, and clearly, of course, a security strategist, Dr. David Okoro. Doctor, good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once more.
All right. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. David. So we have had conversations over and over and over again around insecurity. It seems it's getting even worse now. But I wanted to ask you, do you think that there is something that ought to be said or ought to be done that has not been done? I want us to open that conversation before I take it to Mr. Frank in the U.S.
Clearly so, because they say it's madness to do the same thing all the time and expect different results. We have told the path for a long time, but what has happened is that there's a spread in the crisis that we face. It's like cancer. It's spreading fast. This past week, a general was taken on the roads in Katsina with his wife, while in Ibadan, while we are still talking about the school children that were taken that are still in the bush. A lady was driving, a relation of the immediate past Minister of Power, and she was picked on the streets of Ibadan with her child.
Two of her children. Yeah.
Two of her children. And then I read another report of armed men attacking the, what do you call them now, Nigerian Immigration Service, their office in Ogbomoso. And it's endless. You see, it's like it's unraveling. But then the question you really ask yourself is, there must be something wrong somewhere. A situation where you have a few ragtag men with whatever is it that they are holding the whole country down. I mean, we have a current report that says that Nigerian military is the 33rd most powerful in the world, ranked 33rd. And in Africa, we are told this is firepower index that shows that this is the kind of military we have. And we have a police force. We have all sorts of other elements of state that state used to exert its power. And we are saying that children are taken on the streets, they are in the bush for this long, and the Nigerian state is unable to rescue its citizens. We have photographs, videos all over the internet, across the world, showing that Nigerians are taken there in the bush, they are being whipped and beaten and tortured, and they are being recorded and broadcasted all over the world. And Nigerian government is unable to address it. We are not saying we are at war with foreign land. We are talking about ragtag criminals within our nation, and the totality of the armed forces and the security element are not able to deal with them. And so you are talking about the Oyo State incident. It's almost 2 weeks since it happened. We are told that they were taken to the forest. And it befuddles me and perplexed that the totality of our military security state and non-state actors have not been able to get into the forest, whatever they are, and sort out whoever is in there. So something fundamental is wrong. And if you ask me, our strategy needs urgently to change, because what we are doing now cannot indeed get us out of the pool.
So before I take you to Frank, I wanted to do a follow-up. So I think the Sean of Ogbomoso has said, somebody, I think he said this, that the problem is that the security forces don't want to, attack them so that they don't start killing the people that are there. I think there are also indications that they might have been, actually cordoned inside the place. What do you think has to happen differently, Dr. Okoro?
Look, the options are there. If you say that, we are afraid that they will, if we apply force, we can use gas. There are nerve gases you use that will put everybody to sleep. There are options. I realize that those implications, those complications could be there, but there are several other options that can be used. And it's not the military that is telling you this, the show of Ogbomoso. Of course, he's not the right person that should be telling you this.
I guess the guy is just, I'm sure he's in his backyard.
Exactly, but he might just be thinking that way. But when we have that kind of situation, there are options to be used. There are plethora of options that can be used. Apart from using gas, there's smoke, and all sorts that can be used to ensure that the kidnappers are disabled while military operation goes on. Nobody's going to come and tell you that is the situation. That has never been the issue. We have had plethora of kidnap like this, and we've had one simple way of addressing it, which is to pay ransom. And that's where we are getting to, because what it means, because it starts taking so much time to get out these people, the kidnappers will just distribute the people, they disperse them, and make it impossible or difficult for you to move in and rescue them as one group. It's taking so long. But like I said, there are strategies that Nigeria should adopt that will ensure that this kind of thing does not happen again. Because let me tell you the crisis. We have a huge problem. All over the country, there is security crisis. The resources we have, whether manpower, whether equipment, whether technology, and all sorts, fall significantly short of what is required to address this issue. But meanwhile, there are other platforms, there are other arrangements that can ensure that we democratize security. When I say we democratize security, let the people lead the process of protecting themselves. So you have security of the people, by the people, and for the people. Because with the number of men we have, if you put all of them together, we are less than 1 million. That's, if I say 1 million, you are being generous. We are far below
our
that.
uniform security.
Our uniform armed security. We are far below that. The equipment are far in between, the platform. So what we need to do is to now allow the people, or bring the people to lead the process, to secure their own community. Think about it. I keep saying it, that this community-centered security strategy is the way to go. It does not mean that government cannot do it, but we need to bring in the people to lead in the security of their various communities.
Okay.
And then the official government security will play as a second level of defense for those communities. As long as we fail to do this, we will continue to have this issue. Sorry, I was just going to add this. A couple of while ago, we were not talking about Southwest. Today we are talking about Oyo State, the heart,
and Ekiti State.
and Ekiti, the heart of Southwest.
Yeah.
Lagos is a stone thrown away. And others, and who even say if they decide to strike in Lagos mode, they cannot do it. They can't. The initiative right now is in the hand of the criminals. The state have lost their ability to detect and determine what happened. It's the criminal that determine that now, and the state is panty and seem to be unable to protect its citizens. Those children that are in the bush are expecting government to act on their behalf. They're expecting the military, the police, to rise up and defend them. Unfortunately, everybody, their hands seem to be down. That's why I said something fundamental must be happening as to why our security agencies, our defense forces are incapable right now of protecting the integrity of our nation.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Okoro. Let's take it to Mr. Frank. By the way, like I said, Mr. Frank Uto is based in the US. He's a lawyer and is very active in the United States, advocating around these things with people that matter both in and outside of government. Mr. Franguto, how do you weigh in? Now, I know that you are very concerned about, Yellowater, Benue, and you've been on it for a while. But what is your take seeing the level and the spread of insecurity at this point?
All right. Thank you very much, Laulu. First of all, in addition to the introduction about my person, I am also the media relations officer of Equipping the Persecuted in America.
Yes.
And of course, we have Truth Nigeria as our media subsidiary. So if you listen to many of these congressional hearings about Nigeria, a lot of the congressmen were making references to sources from Truth Nigeria. Now, Truth Nigeria is on ground in Nigeria, in every of the communities affected by this insurgency, by this genocide, by this terrorism. So we have raw, undiluted data. And on several occasions, we've been given alerts to communities that are facing impending attacks. And 99% of the time, our projection always come to pass. What I'm trying to say, in essence, is that we have serious data on ground. We have raw facts about what's been happening. The problem in Nigeria is threefold. One is the problem of ideology, political, and economic. And, long before I came to the United States, just 2 years ago to school. I just graduated from the University of Central Oklahoma with a master's in public policy and nonprofit. So the nonprofit part is what I'm doing right now with Equipping the Persecuted,
right.
But before now, I've been fighting that cause in Nigeria. In 2015, we went to the ECOWAS court. I was one of the lawyers of a group known as Movement Against Fulani Occupation. In Benue, it's called MAFO, Movement Against Fulani Occupation. I was one of the lawyers who went to ECOWAS court in Abuja. In 2016, we in Abuja, under the auspices of VATIB, Vanguard Against Thief Massacre, VATIB,
yes,
staged one of the biggest demonstrations in Abuja, April of 2016. We went to the National Assembly, we locked down the National Assembly, and we were invited. Two of us spoke before the Police Affairs Committee of the National Assembly. As far back as 2016, you see, we were calling it genocide. We have the placards, we're calling it genocide. And up to the massacre in my local government of Guma and Logo on 1st of January 2018.
And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. It means Nigeria will win, partly because we will keep on with the major issues of the day. My name is Laolu Akonde. Thank you for watching. And by the grace of God, I'll see you at the Sunday edition.